This program contains mature subject matter, coarse language, and violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
Take this shit out of my face.
On this edition of The Fifth Estate,
I can't read.
spit hoods, controversial devices used on inmates, patients, and even children. They've been banned in some parts of the world,
Amnesty International labelled them as tools of torture.
yet they're used right here in every Canadian province and territory.
Si, là, il n'y aurait pas eu les vidéos, on n'aurait jamais eu su qu'il y avait eu un masque, là.
But their use can turn deadly.
I never heard about a spit hood until the incident with my brother.
Her brother died here, at this Montreal prison.
Kids are like, oh my God, that could be me. Police have control of me to the point where I lose my life.
So who's regulating how they're used?
Here in Quebec, the National Police Academy wasn't training at all.
And who's accountable when things go wrong?
I said I can't breathe.
No, take this kid off the stage.
I was sure I was going to die.
No one is keeping track.
There's no accountability because all of this stuff is being buried and being kept a secret.
We reveal how, despite mounting evidence of the dangers, Canadian institutions continue to use spit hoods, largely unchecked.
I'm Brigitte Noël. This is The Fifth Estate.
de Québec.
Oui, bonjour. On est en train d'écouter la TV, puis il y a un garçon qui est rentré. Il avait le corps nu. Là, il semblait confus.
C'était sur l'heure du midi, en avant de chez nous, à Lille. Je vois arriver un véhicule de police. Là, il sort deux policiers qui sonnent à la porte. Fait que là, je réponds. « Êtes-vous le père de Bruno-Pierre Harvey? » J'ai dit « Oui. » Là, il m'annonce qu'il était décédé d'une arrestation policière. Puis, oui, je me suis effondré.
On September 6, 2020, Bruno-Pierre Harvey died during an altercation with Quebec City Police at the age of 28.
J'ai deux véhicules, madame, là, qui vont venir, là.
C'est sûr qu'il y a des problèmes, là. Il n'est pas drôle, là.
Mon frère, 5 pieds 6, fait à peu près 155 livres. Au moment de l'arrestation, il était torse nu. C'était pas menaçant. Mon frère, il voulait pas mourir. On peut-tu savoir qui était là, comment que ça s'est passé, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Non, on savait rien. Quelques jours après l'événement, j'ai eu une personne qui est rentrée en contact avec moi par Messenger qui me dit qu'elle avait été témoin de l'événement, qu'elle trouvait ça inhumain. Puis après ça, on a appris qu'il y a eu des témoins là, qui ont assisté à la scène et qui ont filmé la scène. Puis on entend sur la scène que mon frère est en détresse, qu'il manque d'air. Puis on voit un policier qui part, qui va chercher un masque anti-crachat et qui lui met ça sur la tête. Il nous demande de l'aide, même il nous appelle à l'aide, moi et mon père. Aidez-moi, aidez-moi!
Aidez-moi, 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 je respire plus, je veux pas mourir.
Si, là, il n'y aurait pas eu les vidéos, puis s'il n'y avait pas eu les personnes qui nous ont communiqué là, de la façon que ça s'était passé, là, on n'aurait jamais su qu'il y avait eu un masque, là.
Used by most Canadian police, jails, and even some hospitals, spit masks are meant to protect staff from bodily fluids. But in recent years, they've come under intense scrutiny, with groups like Amnesty International and the UN calling for them to be banned.
J'en ai amené une aussi.
T'en as un? Ah, ben, prenons-le.
Michael Aruda is a retired police officer who's developed an expertise in crisis intervention and use of force. He's often been called upon as an expert witness by families like Bruno Pierre Harvey's who believe they were victims of police misconduct.
So this is typically a mask that is used, a mesh on top. The bottom part is this, and it has a rubber band at the bottom that will go around the neck. And all we see is the person's nose and eyes on top. What is commonly known as a spit mask. It's a piece of equipment that first interveners like the police, like corrections officers, or even ambulance might use to restrain somebody from spitting. If not used properly, it might cause damage or even death.
Monsieur Harvey, dans la vidéo qui a été filmée de l'intervention, dit qu'il a du mal à respirer.
Oui.
Et le masque n'a pas été enlevé.
Non.
Est-ce que c'est une erreur?
Quelqu'un qui est en crise, quelqu'un qui n'est pas capable de respirer, c'est même pas une question, on enlève.
Qui ne méritait pas ça, de décéder d'une telle façon. Ça, c'est des photos de Bruno Pierre avec sa moto. Parce que Bruno Pierre, il est comme moi. On aime beaucoup, beaucoup la moto. Puis, avant qu'il décède, on avait projet de partir en moto. C'est tellement des gros morceaux, là. C'est ta vie qui vient de partir, là. C'est ton gars, là. Tu l'as élevé, t'as coupé le cordon, puis après ça, t'as tout, là. Tu l'as éduqué. La cagoule, là, ça a tué mon garçon. C'est arrivé le 6 septembre 2020. Puis j'ai su qu'il est arrivé plusieurs autres décès, encore dans la même façon, qu'il n'y avait rien eu de changé.
On December 24, 2022, Nicholas D'Andre Spring died after an altercation with staff at a Montreal detention center, an incident where he was forced into a spit hood. The 21-year-old shouldn't even have been there. A judge had ordered his release the day before.
I never heard about a spit hood until the incident with my brother. I never even know that they use things like that for inmates.
He's playing with his friends at school.
Nicholas was very quiet. Like, he was quiet, he was like lovey, and he liked music a lot.
I wanna break these walls, I make the pain stop. Hope there's a door in front of me and got the key to unlock. I want the fame and money to take these dark.
He used to like write his lyrics.
This is the booth. This is where our kids come and they're able to record for free. So Nikas used to come here on a regular basis. He was recording tracks. He would come in and hang out. He was a part of our other programs, but his big passion was music.
An unpaid transit ticket when he was a teen catapulted Nicholas into the criminal justice system, initiating a series of arrests and charges his family blames on racial profiling.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. No, check.
He was later diagnosed with mental health issues. His last arrest, on December 21st, 2022, was for breaking a court-imposed curfew.
Nikas, I always used to call him the gentle giant, because he was a very big boy for his age. The day I found out about Nikas passing, I was through social media, and I was like, astonished And again, you know, then understanding as the circumstances coming out, I'm like, but this doesn't make sense.
I just got like this phone call saying, oh, Sarafina, your brother's in the hospital. When they told me that he's gone, it's just the machine showing his vital. Yeah, that's when everything changed. Nikas let go. The machine shut off on its own. Yeah, we didn't have to unplug him. And then, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Nobody prepares you for that. Kids are like, oh my God, that could be me. Nikas used to come and sit in this chair. He used to be in that booth. Is that how my future's gonna end up? If I one mistake or someone, a mistaken identity, I'm in a situation and police have control of me to the point where I lose my life? To walk around with that, every time you do see a police car go by or something happen, you get a certain kind of energy as a black man.
The young man's final moments were captured on prison surveillance. These videos have never been released to the public, but the family has seen them.
I couldn't finish the video. I won't wish that on anybody.
Radio-Canada journalists were able to get incident reports written by correctional officers which shed light on what happened. Staff described Nikas as unstable and struggling to contain his emotions. A fight breaks out and he's pepper sprayed, then forced into a spit mask. Hooded and handcuffed, he's then thrown into the shower, where guards pepper spray him again. When they pull him out, they realize he's no longer breathing.
Is it safe to use a spit hood on a person who's just been pepper sprayed?
No.
On a person who's suffered a head injury?
No.
On a person who's bleeding from the mouth or nose?
No.
On a person who's very much in crisis?
No.
On a person who's being held to the ground by one or more police officers who are applying pressure to their upper body?
No. It's a restraining piece of equipment that police use, just like the handcuffs. There must be a protocol put into place before and after the use of the mask.
Michael Aruda has this expertise because he sought out specialized training in the United States, which doesn't exist in Canada. During this investigation, we reached out to more than 20 police forces and contacted every province and territory to ask how spit masks are used in their correctional facilities or hospitals. We learned that this device is loosely regulated and that protocols can vary widely from one jurisdiction to another.
Here in Quebec, the National Police Academy wasn't training at all.
Coming up.
Like that stuff that I thought that was just the movies. And then I went to jail.
I knew I was not dying that day. I was going to breathe no matter what.
This 2021 incident in a Manitoba prison allegedly broke out after a guard made a racist joke.
If you're talking to us, you can breathe.
William Amo, a 45-year-old Anishinaabe man, was killed in the altercation. Here, he appears to be wearing 2 spit hoods. William Amo's case is one of the 17 deaths involving spit hoods identified by our team. But the actual toll could be even higher.
Is he breathing? Get the mask off his nose, baby.
The challenges of finding out if a spit hood was used in somebody's death would be, one is corrections officers may not record that they use spit hoods, gloves, or any sort of restraint equipment.
Lindsay Jennings is a researcher for Tracking Injustice, one of the only Canadian organizations actively keeping tabs on deaths that occur during arrests or in detention.
It's not as easy as everybody thinks it is to put this puzzle together, because all of this stuff is being buried and being kept a secret.
It's a world she's seen up close.
Like, that stuff that I thought that was just the movies. And then I went to jail. When I got out, I was like, I'm gonna make a difference. So maybe part of justice is being able to tell the story.
I absolutely do carry the weight of being a survivor in a situation that's claimed so many lives, that it is my duty to speak to this for the people that we have lost. It was in May of 2020. I was struggling with depression, and my oldest son and I got into an argument. My son called in a wellness check on me because I was crying in the bathroom. He called the RCMP, assuming that he could get some help. They arrived in force. They asked me to come out, and I asked them to call an ambulance if they were concerned for my mental health or my well-being. They actually started hanging on to the door. When I did come out, they went for their holsters, and I put my hands up.
Shauna sits down in her living room. The officers tell her that her son claimed she was suicidal and that they now have to arrest her for her own protection.
And I said, no, you can't. And as soon as I stood up, he punched me from the left side and spun my head right around. And I don't remember falling, but at that point, I woke up in a pool of blood, face down, with my teeth in front of me. As soon as I started screaming, one of the officers called for another officer to go to the car and get a spit hood. They pulled over my face. I was screaming. I said, I can't, what are you doing? I'm bleeding, I can't breathe.
The RCMP told us spit hoods have been part of their toolkit since 2003, but officers don't have to report using them, which means the force is keeping little data.
Before they exited the house with the spit hood on, I actually fainted. And at that point, they lost control of my body and dropped me down the stairs.
Oh, get off the stage. You guys remember when snatched my face in the banister? I was fucking awesome.
And I was screaming, please, please, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I was able to manipulate my shoulders because I was cuffed behind my back so that I could bring my finger up behind me and get a pinky into the corner of the mask and rip it away. And that's when I was able to breathe again. But I knew I was not dying that day. I was going to breathe no matter what.
According to RCMP statistics, mental health-related police calls have nearly doubled over the past decade, a major challenge for law enforcement agencies who advocates say are still ill-equipped to handle these situations.
If this is what the result is, when a son calls for some mental health help for his mother, who do we call in times of help if we can't call the RCMP?
The spit hoods tend to be used on individuals who are in some level of significant, both psychological and often that corresponds to some physiological distress. This person is not sitting here like you and I, just where someone comes up and says, hey, can I put this spit mask on you because you're spitting at me? It's going to be something a little bit more aggressive.
Mon frère, il avait besoin d'aide, puis les gens qui ont appelé le 911, là, c'était pas pour l'arrêter, c'était pour l'aider.
C'est un homme d'environ quel âge, madame?
Il a dans 31 ans. On l'a vu vite, là. Il est rentré par la porte de ça. Il a dit, est-ce qu'on peut t'aider? C'est quoi qu'il a dit, sa femme? J'ai des problèmes.
Ce qu'on a appris sur le masque anti-crachat, de prime abord, c'est utilisé par les policiers pour n'importe quelle situation. Ils n'ont pas de restrictions. On ne peut pas mettre ça sur la tête de quelqu'un qui est en état de psychose, là. Tout ce que ça peut faire, c'est que ça fait monter l'état de la personne en anxiété, là. Bien, il a été mis pourquoi? Tu sais, je veux dire, il était face contre sol.
The coroner's report states that Bruno Pierre Harvey died of cardiorespiratory arrest linked to a cocaine overdose. But the family rejects that conclusion. They say it fails to take into account the physical toll that a police intervention and a spit hood can have on a person in crisis. They're not alone. Experts say it's rare for a spit hood to be officially named as a cause of death in these types of incidents.
It takes the ownership of that individual's health outside of the people who should be responsible for it. And it blames them.
Emergency physician Matthew Thomas has served as a medical expert in excessive force cases where spit masks were involved.
When someone feels like they're about to die and are going into survival mode, they have this massive release of adrenaline. With that comes the elevated heart rate. You have the elevated blood pressure. Your pupils will dilate, potential of going into an acidosis, meaning respiration or metabolism without sufficient oxygen.
The police, they need to be trained for mental illness because all they're trained for is aggression. They just think like Nikas is some kind of bad kid, but he's not a bad kid.
Nikas D'Andre Spring had been diagnosed with schizophrenia a few years before his death. Court records show authorities were well aware of his mental health struggles.
The system did fail him.
It's so dehumanizing. The outcome that I've seen when spit hoods, pepper spray, maybe being confined or being held down, not being able to breathe, is death. And we've seen that with Naku Spring, we've seen that with Solomon Fakiri.
Coming up, the heavy cost of seeking justice.
We knew that something did happen. We didn't know what that something was. Solomon didn't just roll over and die.
March 2020, police in Rochester, New York get a call about a man in distress.
Hey, get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground.
Are you Daniel? Daniel Prude? Please let me get my money. Daniel Prude?
Daniel Prude, a 41-year-old father of 5, is naked, unarmed, and suffering from a mental health crisis. Officers handcuff him, leaving him face down on the icy street.
Let me go, man. I got blood on myself. Get the fuck away from me! Give me your gun, I need it. My mama blood, they flipping over that grave. I mean that.
They pull a spit hood over his head.
God bless you. Get the fuck away from me.
Sit down.
All right, take this shit out of my face.
No, I got him, I got him. I'm already in it.
Drag me, kill me. And Jesus get over me.
Stop. Calm down. Stop, calm down. Couldn't tell you anything.
As they hold him down against the asphalt, Prude loses consciousness. He never wakes up.
You good, man?
No justice!
No peace! Fuck these racist police! Fuck twice!
The death sparks protests. It's ruled a homicide, yet not a single officer involved is ever charged. After a civil lawsuit, the city of Rochester is ordered to pay $12 million to Daniel Prude's children.
I placed a phone call for my brother to get help, not for my brother to get lynched.
In Canada, that kind of settlement is almost unheard of. But the lack of justice is familiar. Criminal charges against Canadian law enforcement are also extremely rare. Case in point, the Fikiri family's quest for the truth.
Suleiman, he was a straight-A student in high school, captain of his football team, played rugby.
In his last year of high school, Suleiman Fikiri gets into a car accident and sustains a traumatic brain injury. He is then diagnosed with schizophrenia. His life is turned upside down. On December 4, 2016, during a psychotic break, he allegedly assaults his neighbor. They call police, and he ends up in jail.
3 days before his tragic death, my dad and I arranged for Solomon to be transferred to a hospital, and a judge, to their credit, ordered that transfer, but he never made it because 72 hours later, he was beaten to death. On December 15, 2016, I was sitting in my room. It was a Thursday night. My sister barges in my door, my sister Paladin, and said, "Solly's dead." An incident took place when the guards entered Solly's cell. That's all we were told. We knew that something did happen. We didn't know what that something was. Solomon didn't just roll over and die. And I realized that very quickly, that we have to fight to get to the information. We had no other choice.
All the documents, all the proof.
All the documents.
That legal battle dragged on for 7 years, a succession of 3 separate police investigations, none leading to criminal charges.
J'étais juste sidérée, comme complètement à terre sur toutes les choses qui n'ont pas bien été, à chaque étape du processus.
Then, in 2023, a coroner's inquest allows the family to finally see surveillance footage of Suleiman's last moments.
Part of me wishes I didn't see the video, the final moments of his life. And that video haunts me to this day.
This footage revealed for the first time that a spit hood was involved in Fikiri's death.
Why? Why did they have to go about it this way, putting him in a spit hood? The coroner's inquest gave us a homicide verdict, but almost a decade into his death, we still have not received criminal accountability.
In 2021, the Harvey family filed a suit against Quebec City Police and paramedics. They requested $280,000 in damages, but their primary goal was to make first responders change their practices.
Qu'est-ce que ça vous a fait d'apprendre que les policiers du SPVQ n'avaient aucune formation quant à l'utilisation du masque anti-crachat?
Bien, c'est sûr que nous, on voulait se battre pour qu'il y en ait eu une formation. Parce qu'on l'a vu, là, dans notre situation, là, que ça a juste fait dégénérer la situation de mon frère. S'il y avait eu des formations sur le masque, il n'aurait pas été mis, non?
On n'avait pas d'argent, mais j'avais des biens. Moi, la poursuite, elle nous a coûté 300 000 $, parce que j'ai dû vendre ma maison. Parce que j'ai vendu les voitures, les biens à Bruno Pierre, moto, tout est passé.
After 3 years, the lawsuit was dismissed. The judge issued no recommendations concerning first responders' handling of people in crisis. Quebec City Police refused to comment on both the case and its spit hood policies.
Est-ce que ça a valu la peine?
Oui, j'ai aucun regret. Un bien, c'est pas grave, c'est... Mais un enfant, là, c'est ça, là. Si... Oui, la moitié de moi qui est mort, là.
So when I arrived at the hospital with the RCMP, I was assessed by the emergency room doctor with a broken nose, broken teeth, and then I was sent to psychiatry. They released me without any concern. When we returned home, we found on the floor the packaging for the Easy Transport spit hood and the instructions on the packaging. And it says, in bold letters, do not use on person that is bleeding profusely from the nose and mouth.
We learned that the majority of Canadian institutions, the RCMP, federal penitentiaries, most provinces, use the same kind of spit hood called the transport hood. It was used on Shauna Blanchard, on Bruno Pierre Harvey, on Nicholas d'André Spring, but also in most deaths that we were able to document. It's available in stores and online, so we ordered one. It cost $25 and arrived in less than a week. We wanted to know more about the genesis of this product. Oof, it's very hot here. It feels like kind of a painter's drop cloth. Turns out it was actually one of the first spit hoods on the market. It's now sold all over the world by distributors like Safariland, one of the biggest police gear suppliers on the planet. But its origins are humble. Yes, it's Bridget from the CBC for John Kaminsky. It was created in 1999 by a carpet installer who got the idea while watching cop shows. I mean, how did you go from installing carpet to producing spit hoods?
Me and my wife started the patent on it, and then we had a lawyer end up taking over because it got too complicated for us.
John Kaminsky told us his product is safer than other methods police may use to stop spit.
They use tape, duct tape. They pull shirts overhead, towels wrapped around people's heads.
But he was unable to say whether the product's safety had been tested before its launch.
Like, at what point did you determine that it worked and that it was safe?
Well, they tested the job for most policemen. I guess they tested it on themselves. If they followed the instructions on every single hood sold, they're very safe to use.
Safe to use as long as instructions are followed. Experts warn it's not that simple. In the chaos of a real-life crisis, these instructions can quickly go out the window.
Yeah, I got one in my pocket.
In every single death our team investigated, the spit hood seems to have been used incorrectly. More than just random mistakes, we discovered some of these errors are actually baked into the police training itself.
So notice how I have everything set up.
Take this internal video we obtained from the Edmonton police through an information request. Here, a first spit hood is put on incorrectly, followed by the unrecommended application of a second spit hood. Contacted by the Fifth Estate, Edmonton police said this video is outdated and that officers are no longer taught to double up. But all over the country, lack of proper training has a tangible effect. Like in this 2007 video of 19-year-old Ashley Smith taken mere months before her suicide in prison. Here, guards force her into not one but two spit hoods, which they put on backwards and then duct tape to her body.
How can it get worse?
There has been little research on the safety of spit hoods, a handful of papers experts call unreliable as they fail to account for the hectic conditions of real-life scenarios.
Generally, the studies are pretty limited. They tend to be healthy individuals that are volunteers and tend to not have probably significant underlying medical conditions.
Meanwhile, other protective methods like masks and visors have been proven safe.
No justice! No peace!
In reality, a first responder with the appropriate PPE, personal protective equipment, should essentially be immune to anybody spitting in their direction.
In the last few years, some American police forces have restricted their use of spit hoods, either banning them completely or prohibiting their use on people in crisis. In California, the American Civil Liberties Union is currently pressuring the Los Angeles County Sheriff, among others, to change their policies.
We at the ACLU have been negotiating with the county about having very explicit policies on the use of the spit mask and when it can and cannot be used. In recent years, there are some jurisdictions in California where the police no longer use it, but that's only because somebody died and then the family sued and won millions of dollars.
The use of spit hoods has come under scrutiny in several European countries. And while they are used in the UK, they're classified under torture goods legislation, which means they can't be purchased by the public. But it's in Australia that national outrage has had the most significant impact. Coming up,
a young child, a teenage boy, footage was captured of him in a mechanical restraint chair with a spit hood on him as well.
We have found that in Canada, the spit mask is also used on children, young teenagers. How do you feel about that?
Oof.
These images of a teenage boy, first broadcast by investigative program Four Corners in 2016, sent shockwaves across Australia.
It sort of became a really national sort of focus when footage from an investigative journalist report surfaced of a youth prison in the Northern Territory. It's called Dondale, where a young child, a teenage boy who was incarcerated in Dondale, an Aboriginal boy, footage was captured of him in a mechanical restraint chair with a spit hood on him.
That same year, Australian media also reported on the spit hood-related death of an adult inmate.
It caused a heap of national outrage and led to a royal commission process.
Australian federal police, along with several jurisdictions or institutions, have since banned or restricted the use of spit hoods, either entirely or specifically on children.
Amnesty International labelled them as tools of torture. Tragically, as is often the case, we end up having to respond and react after spit hoods have been used. And I think it's the same in Canada as well.
Lay down to the ground, put your hands behind your back, and do it now. Okay, are you guys ready? Shut up!
Much is the same in Canada, including the use of spit hoods on children. In 2023, our CBC News colleagues published a shocking report on the treatment of teens in lockup, which featured these images of 15-year-old Saskatchewan Anishinaabe boy Matthew Michel restrained and forced into a spit hood. This is not an isolated case. Our team found that spit hoods are allowed on minors in all of Canada, either by the RCMP, in youth detention centres, or in hospitals. Information obtained from Montreal's Philippe Pinel Psychiatric Institute, for instance, reveals they've used these masks on minors more than 250 times in the last decade. They told us spit hoods are used only in exceptional circumstances and that these incidents often involved the same minors.
We have found that in Canada, the spit mask is also used on children, young teenagers. How do you feel about that?
Oof. I say, first of all, we shouldn't use it on children because it is a mask and there's a traumatizing part to it.
It's taken 5 years to really know the extent of the damage and the psychological damage that's been caused primarily from the spit hood.
Shauna Blanchard is suing the BC government and the RCMP, alleging negligence and misconduct causing permanent harm. But the RCMP disputes her version of events. While an independent investigation did find the mask was used incorrectly, they said use of force was justified by Shauna's aggressive behavior.
No one should ever have to fear the police on a wellness check. There has to be some accountability for this. People should not have to wonder if the tools the RCMP are going to use are going to kill them. And I don't ever want another person to suffocate in a spit hood again.
Very few Canadian institutions have reacted to these incidents. Our investigation found that so far, New Brunswick is the only province to discontinue the use of spit hoods in its jails, a move made only after an inmate died while wearing one. Meanwhile, our federal prisons don't even track the use of this device, which they consider to be simply personal protective equipment. In a message, Canada's former correctional investigator Ivan Zinger told us he'd been trying to engage correctional services on the risks of spit hoods and lobbying for them to find alternative strategies.
I mean, it's shocking to me that they don't track the use of spit hoods in the prisons in Canada. I mean, that's a restraint. That's a form of restraint. All the state prison systems and county jail systems I've ever interacted with, using a spit hood would be considered part of a use of force that requires a report.
I guarantee you that none of the peace officers that I have worked with would ever be excited by the fact that someone died on their watch. And so I don't think it's an us versus them.
Si. Là-dedans, il y a les cendres de mon garçon Bruno Bière. La justice a perdu beaucoup de signification pour moi.
For affected families, justice is hard to come by. Fighting the system is one thing, but proving the specific role of a spit hood in situations where police combine multiple layers of force is nearly impossible.
I think it would be difficult to point to the spit mask as a cause of death because it is the setting of prolonged physical duress with multiple factors.
Every December, it brings back all the memories. Like, Christmas is never the same. Like, it's never gonna be the same.
I guess one last thing I'd like to say to make sure that we make Nikas's life mean something is for it to have effect and change.
In July 2025, a corrections officer involved in Nikas's death was charged with manslaughter. His trial and a coroner's inquest are still pending.
Me fighting for justice is not only for Nikas, but for my son as well. I don't want him to end up in the jail system. Justice for Nikas and justice for the other people that died so cruelly.